Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Coding Bytes. I'm Evan, an educator at Coding Lab. Today, we are going to teach you how to systematically tackle program development questions, the most challenging task in the O Level Computing Paper 2. Before we jump into it, it's important that all of you know about the structure of Paper 2. In Paper 2, there are typically 4 tasks covering the following 4 key topics respectively: spreadsheet functions and features, program refinement, debugging, program development with lesser than 40 lines of code. Most students are worried about program development as it holds the most marks and the questions appear to be long and complex. To get your A1, you must ace program development, and I'm going to help you do it with ease. Task 4 usually consists of 3 questions of the following nature: program development, where you write the Python program based on the specifications given; testing, where you will test your program based on test cases given; and program extension, where you will extend your program. Let's take a quick look at task 4 from the past year papers. So over here, we have 2019's paper, and over here, we have 2020's paper. What do you notice from the past year questions? There are 3 important takeaways. Each bullet point corresponds to 1 segment of your code. Each sentence roughly corresponds to 1 step or action that you have to code, and are structured in roughly the same sequential order as you would be coding. In other words, the question has already been decomposed for you sequentially, and you will just need to follow it 1 sentence at a time to write your code. And remember one thing: the longer the program specifications, the easier it is for you to code, as it means that the steps given are a lot more detailed. So don't panic when you see a really long question. Be delighted instead. We will be using 2018 Paper 2, Task 4 to demonstrate the step-by-step technique. Here's the question. You can pause this video for a moment to read the question. Now that you have read through the question, we will be going to break down the question step by step and observe the key parts of the question. You have been tasked to create a guessing game program. The program should allow player 1 to input a whole number between 1 and 50 inclusive for player 2 to guess. There must be validation to check that the number entered is between 1 and 50 inclusive. So for this, we will need the user to input a whole number. We can highlight these parts to remember to apply the concepts later in our codes. Validation is also needed to check if player 1 number it is between 1 to 50. So right now, we can write down some of the concepts that we will be applying into our codes later. Firstly, the input statement. Next, as it's going to be a whole number, which is an integer, we can add in the word int into our input statement. Next, validation is needed to check if the number is between 1 and 50. So we will need a loop and an if statement to check if the number entered is correct. So we'll apply the concepts of if it is in the loop. Next, allow player 2 to have 5 guesses to correctly guess the number input by player 1. You do not need to validate the input for player 2. So for this case, player 2 is going to have 5 guesses. It would be a number input. So with 5 guesses, the program is going to perform a loop. It is also going to ask player 2 for a number input. So it's going to ask for an integer input. Next, output you guess the correct number when player 2 inputs the same number as player 1. The game must end if the correct number is guessed. So if the value of player 2 and player 1 it is the same, we would have a message to print. And the game must also end. We can have an if condition to print out the message if the condition is true. In order to end the game when a correct guess has been made, we are also going to have a break statement to exit out of the loop that we have in step 2. Next, output you did not guess the correct number when player 2 does not input the same number as player 1. So for this case, if the two numbers are different, we are going to have an else statement to print out a different message. So lastly, output game over when player 2 has 5 incorrect guesses. So last but not least, when player 2 has made 5 incorrect guesses, we are going to output out game over. So we are going to have an if statement to check for the number of guesses that the user has remaining and print out the game over message if the user does not have any guesses remaining. So with that, we have now decomposed the question and found out on the concepts that we can use to apply in our codes. So here is what we have broken down so far. So by decomposing the question, we can then also come up with a list of steps that we can use to program. So here are the steps. And with that, we are now ready to code. We will start off by creating a variable, player 1, that will contain the value of none. And we will create a while loop that will repeat until the value of the variable is not none. So while player 1 is still none, and then inside our loop, we can then have an integer input for player 1 to enter down a number. So the number is going to be a number that's between 1 and 50 inclusive. And then next, we will need to check whether the number it is within the range between 1 and 50 inclusive or not. So if a player enters a number that's smaller than 1, or he enters something that's higher than 50, we are then going to print out an error message. And then we are going to update our player 1 variable back to none so that the program is going to continue to ask player 1 to enter another number. So that this would be its validation. So it is important to test out each part of your program to ensure that it works. So I will be testing out for this part, but for the subsequent parts, you can try to test them out yourself. So if I enter an invalid number, I'm going to get an error message. However, if I enter a valid one, the program, it is going to end right there. So the program will not continue to ask me for another number. So next, in the next part, we are now going to have a for loop that is going to repeat the rest of the codes 5 times by making use of a range. So we will do for I in range 0 to 5. And then we will have another variable called player2, where player2 will now enter a guess. So integer input, make a guess. And now we will need to check if the number that player 2 has entered, whether it is the same as the one that player 1 has entered. So we are going to do so with an if statement. So if player 2, it is the same as player 1's number, we will then do a print message. So print, you guessed the correct number. And then in addition, we will also have a break statement to stop the loop, where the program it is going to end once there is a correct guess. And next, in part 4, if an incorrect guess has been made, we will have to output "you did not guess the correct number" message, which we will do so with an else statement. So else print, you did not guess the correct number. So lastly, when player 2 has made 5 incorrect guesses, the program would exit the loop. So we will need to have an else statement to print the game over message. So else print game over. So with that, we are now done with our program, and we can try to test it out. So if I enter the number 4, and I enter 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. So after 5 tries, I will get the game over message. So you can also try it out and test it out yourself to ensure that your codes work. With this step-by-step technique, you can easily tackle program development of paper 2. So go get your A1. Give us a like if you have enjoyed this video and click subscribe for more coding bites. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye!